Aaron, metal theologian. So check this out. I pulled this record out before, and it's not a very good record. Let's just like get that out of the way right now. It's actually this one. I got this like for $1 because I was curious to check it out because I've heard people say this is the best April Wine record, and it's fucking April Wine, right? But I came around on Y&T, and I kind of looked on them in a similar sort of way. So anyway, here's the thing. Here's where I'm showing this real quick, because look at the surface of this thing. You see those big fucking marks on there and shit? Like all that scuffing? I mean, this record is not in very good shape. Okay? But listen to what this actually sounds like when you fucking put the thing on. The thing being the needle. It's a little bit of crackle. Once you get going, it completely covers it up. You hear that shit? I don't want to play too much at a time because I'm sure this will get an ad put on here, and I really don't feel like paying April Wine any money, right? But, if it's some independent band, that's one thing. But if it's fucking Capitol Records, because it's not like they're paying the band. Listen, you hear that? Like, any objections to this are because it's April Wine, not because of the surface of the record. And I'm just saying this because, I happen to have, like, a good case in point at hand. But, sometimes I show this shit. And I know a lot of the stuff's really hard to find these days. A lot of the stuff is hard to find these days. A lot of the stuff that I show was hard to find in the first place, right? I know I show some rare records. But if you're really to compromise someone's condition, man, like, if you're being a mint freak, you're just setting yourself up to, like, spend a lot of money when you kind of don't need to, because... yeah, it's cool when a record's in nicer shape, right? If I get a record that's in nicer condition, has a nice clean surface, I'm going to do my best to keep it that way. And I'm also willing to pay more for a record that's in better shape than for one that's a little bit more beat. But that's really the point, because when, I'm going to skip over the intro on this one, but this is great, and I kind of want to hype these guys, because these guys are actually awesome. But if you're willing to compromise little running condition, man, you can get so much shit that otherwise you would, like, wait an eternity for and, like, spend a pile of money on. One of my best tricks for, like, finding rare shit is just don't be afraid to grab the shit that other people are, like, not wanting to do that to their needle or whatever else. You hear people saying shit all the time. Really the classic one is when someone looks at a record and goes, oh, I don't want to do that to my needle, Your needle is fucking diamond, right? It can handle a little bit of fucking plastic. It's designed to handle a little bit of fucking plastic, right? In fact, it's not going to be the scratches that do it. It's going to be shit on there, like fingerprints and that like gum up your needle. That's going to be what actually fucks up your needle. And then you just fucking clean it. Get like a cleaner and like take a little time and be careful with it. You can clean your needle right up too. But yeah, man. Don't be a fucking mint freak. Because you're just making it harder on yourself. And people like me are benefiting from it. Because I almost said I don't give a shit. I do give a shit, you know what I mean? I try to get better records. But not to the point where, like, I'm going to, like, cut myself off from, like, cool shit that I really want because I'm holding out for a better copy, man. I made that mistake when I was, like, fucking 20 or something. I learned my lesson. I actually remember the fucking record. It was Blue Cheer, Vincibus Eruptum. And one came through the record store I was working at. And, this was before, like, the internet, right? So you had to just find this stuff. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, but I'm going to hold out for a better copy. And that took me years to find another one. And there were so many times I was kicking myself in the ass, going, God, I wish I hadn't fucking been holding out for a better copy. And eventually I found one. It took maybe 2 or 3 years, though, or something like that. And it was probably in comparable condition to the one I had passed on originally, And there are a few marks on it, but it's that fucking 60s vinyl, especially. You drive over that shit with a tank and it'll play fine. That really heavy duty shit. So don't be stupid. You're just making your own life harder. You're not making my life any harder, that's for sure. So, Yeah, I don't often like to talk about it. I really do new arrivals videos because it feels like, oh, look how much money I spent, you know? I know nobody takes it that way. I don't take it that way if you make new arrivals videos. Just so we're clear, I'm not like sitting here passing judgment, you know? But I don't know, it's just kind of not my style. But I'm going to make an exception, maybe a couple exceptions in the not too distant future because when I sold all those records a couple weeks ago, you know, I told y'all up front that I was going to use the money to buy more records with, right? I mean, it's no fun to sell records if you have to, like, pay bills or something. That's called dire straits, you know? That sucks. And, you know, I was going to say, I hope you're not watching the channel for shit that sucks. But I talk about shit that sucks kind of a lot. It's just, hopefully it sucks in a way that's entertaining. And, like, not having money to pay your bills, that sucks, and it is not entertaining at all. It just purely sucks. Like this fucking April Wine record. I would much rather listen to this April Wine record than not have money to pay bills with, you know? God, this really is not that good a record. But, you know, so I was kind of amused by it anyway. I was listening to it then I was thinking, what the hell do I say about this thing? And I really don't have anything good to say about it. But I don't have a whole lot bad to say about it either. It's just sort of there, you know? It's just sort of, no, it's better than just sort of there. The real problem with that April Wine record is the songs are kind of bad, you know? And it's relatively early for what it is, for as heavy as it is, you know? I mean, I think that's why these people are held in the, you know, or at least got the sort of push that they did. Yeah, this record's 81. You know, it's pretty rocking for 81. But I don't know, man. You listen to that 70s shit. You listen to shit back in the 60s. It's not like they just figured out how to write good songs in, like, 83 or something like that. It is true that, you know, this style of metal sort of came into its own more sort of, you know, 82, 83, something like that. But that's, you know, part of why some of that new album shit is so charming, right? Because, like, that shit from, like, 80, 81, where they were sort of figuring out how to do it and working out the kinks, kind of has its own appeal for just that reason, right? But this record just kind of feels like, I don't know, man, like retarded, like in the literal sense of like being held back. You know what I mean? Sort of like not being fully developed. You know, and I'm sure they're good musicians and all that shit. But the songs just aren't that great. You know what I mean? It just feels kind of like, you know, I don't know, kind of stilted or something like that. It's just not that great. Anyway, this one that we're listening to right now is pretty great. And this is one of the new arrivals. This ironically was sort of the throw-in because I was getting another one that I'll show in a second from a guy in Lithuania, and he also had this, which I sort of had my eye on for a while. This is Novy Zavet, and I've hyped these guys before on account of their second record. For some reason, I'd gotten it into my head that this one wasn't as good. I don't know why. Like I've really been trying to figure out what it was that had sort of put me off about this first record. But the fact is it's great. Jesus sure looks weird, doesn't he? I don't know what's up with that. I'm pretty sure these guys were religious. Like, this is a Christian band. But, yeah, anyway, these guys are Russian. And the other band isn't Lithuanian either, so I'll just tell you that right now. But, you know, post-Soviet. Yeah, so apparently Novy Zavet means New Testament. And I love the fact that one of the guys' names is Gorbachev. And it is in Russian. And there hopefully is in English, too. But, yeah, the second one I think is more sort of fully realized as being, has in this sort of doomy sound. But this first record really has it, too, you know? I don't know, man. These guys just sound doomy and dirgy and dark, you know? The D's. And there's a certain amount of darkness that I hear in all these Russian records, which is part of why they tend to appeal to me, you know? They don't have that whole sort of... I would say they don't have that whole sort of like party vibe that like the LA bands have, but I mean, that's obvious. Of course they're not going to sound like they're from LA if they're from fucking Siberia, you know? Not these guys are from Siberia. I'm exaggerating to be funny. But like... the whole sort of you know, let's get drunk and screw metal kind of puts me off, you know? I mean, obviously there's shit I like, right? But it tends to feel kind of just kind of silly, kind of childish, and that kind of shit also tends to have like a really sort of, you know, sort of pre-packaged, kind of made for a 80s radio sound. That's really unappealing, you know? Like, it takes a lot for me to be able to get behind a band like Rat, you know? Who I kind of like, which is why I picked them for this example, you know? Rat was not like a terrible band or anything like that. But there's just, the whole sort of presentation makes them feel so sort of prefab, even though they were a real band that like worked hard and shit, you know what I mean? That whole sort of striving for that kind of commercial success just kind of sucks. And so these sorts of bands that like didn't have any hope of it, I mean, I suppose they were trying to be successful in Russia, you know? But I don't know, there's just something like about them that sounds really cool. And fucking Novy Zavet is fantastic, man. Like, if you dig like Candlemass or something like that, I don't know any reason why you wouldn't dig these guys. And these records are pretty cheap too, and they're relatively abundant. Like, there are a lot of these Russian records that are relatively cheap, but you can kind of only get them from Russia. But the Novy Zavet ones, you can actually even get from other like former Soviet republics that we're not currently like mad at. So you don't have like the issues with the mail that, or with getting mail from there that you might with Russia. Or not getting mail so much as ordering in the first place. But if you look on Discogs, you can't order shit from Russia anymore. If you watch one of my videos from a few years ago, I was getting a ton of shit from Russia and hyping it all. Like, it might be kind of a bummer to watch those now, because that shit was easy to get, and now it's not. But I can tell you, I've never had any trouble at all with mail from the Baltic states. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. And generally speaking, Eastern Europe overall is pretty okay too. So, yeah, nothing to worry about. And these guys fucking smoke, man. I really like this band a lot. So, yeah, this one's almost more fun to hype than the other one. Even though this other one was the one that I sort of built the order around. And that's, yeah, I went to Lithuania of all places to get a copy of the Blind Vengeance record. Which is actually Canadian. But, it was like half the price for that. That's not, I mean, that's nothing here. I'm giving away all my secrets today, right? But if you really order records from places that other people are afraid to order records from, you can get such good deals. Yeah. Let's fire this up for a minute. Because this one looks kind of cheesy, right? Like the sort of shit I was just sort of disparaging a little bit. But it is a private press. It's relatively early. It's 84. Very good year. No barcode on it. And the guys kind of look like they were probably tools. But I don't know, man. Maybe it's just that it's in Canada because it's so much fucking colder. Like you have to wear more clothes or something like that. But the shit just doesn't seem so bad. The singer has a really weird tone on this record. Like, it almost feels like the record's playing too slow or something. Like, he has sort of like a dark tone. And a lot of singers sound like that, but these guys really kind of... Like I said, it almost sounds like the record's playing too slow or something like that. But, it's not really that glammy. It's a lot more... And, you know, I suppose 84 was early, like, glam hadn't really become sort of mainstream and, you know, popular, sort of the formula for commercial success that it would a few years later, right? But, yeah. I think it's a pretty chunky sound there, right? This is definitely not the heaviest thing ever. But, like, I don't begrudge them those axes they're holding either. You know, it's sort of like... You've earned the right to hold those axes. Maybe you haven't earned the right to hold it over your head like this, like Venom or something like that. I like what he's doing on the drums there too, you know. You hear what I mean about the singer? It's sort of a dark tone, you know what I mean? Sort of the stupido faccia thing you're supposed to do when you're singing, you know? but it almost sounds like the record is playing at the right speed. Also not in perfect condition, this record, but totally fine. And I mean, I have a copy now, right? I'd rather listen to a perfect copy that isn't perfect than a stream, right? Yeah. Hey, don't be afraid to order shit from Lithuania, man. They know what they're doing over there. There's actually a statue of Frank Zappa in Vilnius. Yeah, I learned that it's been there for a while now. It's been there for a good 30 years, I think. So yeah, and like now there are like statues of musicians all over Eastern Europe. Like apparently there's a statue of Dio somewhere. Like I want to say in Bulgaria, but I don't know if that's right. But the first one I ever heard of was the statue of Frank Zappa that they put up in Vilnius. It's the capital of Lithuania. So come on, man. How can you be mad at Lithuania? Jesus Christ. This is a record I've been playing a lot. This is what I kind of just discovered relatively recently. I mean, I've known about this thing forever. And I've probably had this record for at least 20 years. But the light finally went on for me with Witch Cross. I think I said this last time I hyped them. But this is the first time where I was out of town for work last week. And I was walking around all week humming Night Flight to Tokyo to myself, like in my head. I was like, fuck, man, that Witch Cross record has really gotten in my blood, you know? The hooks are just so good. And I had gotten into my head stuff for some reason that this was like a second-rate like speed metal band, but they're really not. It's really more like a traditional metal sound, you know? Not like fully epic metal, they're a little fast for that, but very much 1984, which is when this came out. And just the songs are really good. I mean, it's like the opposite of April Wine, really. And you just sort of sit back and take this one in, and it's over before you know it, you know? Yeah, I've been playing this Fungus one a lot lately, too. This one specifically, too. Like, from a metal standpoint, their second record, Sobredosis de Metal, I think it's called, is probably a better album. But this one kind of has a little bit of a new wave of British heavy metal sound to it. Except for the fact that it's from Mexico. It's from 83, I almost said, which is, and it's late, but it's really not that late. I mean, that's a little bit late for new wave British heavy metal, just because at what point can you no longer call it new, right? But it was Mexico. And this record is really good. It's not the heaviest thing ever. It's not the greatest thing ever. But when you want to hear something like, like a Nwabam album, if you want to hear some of the caliber of the singles, really, and you're willing to deal with a couple of the songs that maybe aren't quite as good as the others, and you don't feel like pulling out your copy of, the first More record or something like that, Fungus will really hit the spot. Yeah, that one's been seeing some action here. Oh, here's what I've got to talk about. Because Nick over from, she's on George Borden's stream, actually, Nick P. I don't know how public he is with his last name, but he's a really good guy, and he said he'd gotten this record, and I said, man, I kind of have a bad impression of that band, and he almost insisted on sending this to me, so finally, for the first time on this channel, you're seeing a Mama's Boys record held up. Not just any Mama's Boys record, but this one with like the really shitty cover. And dude, this whole gimmick, I'm really not on board with the whole like, oh, I'm gonna play the violin in the middle of my metal song. And the fact they're called Mama's Boys, I mean, that's really two strikes right out of the gate. And, yeah, this record's pretty bad. Like, I was expecting this record to just suck beyond belief. And it didn't suck beyond belief, it was only really bad. So it exceeded my expectations, and by that standard, I really kind of enjoyed it, But it is not a good record, and I really can't recommend it. And, yeah, Nick, if you're watching, I hope that isn't a bummer, but I did kind of warn you, Yeah, I mean, plus they did a Slade cover for their smash hit, like Mama's Boys ever had a fucking smash hit, right? But then it was going to be Mama, We're All Crazy Now, and they were doing it, and when the fuck did this come out? 84? When did Quiet Riot do it? About the same time. They might have been a year after this. I don't really know or care, but the whole like sort of we're gonna do Slade covers. We're gonna Slade cover our way to success. It's just not cool, you know. And like I said, I was expecting this record to be worse than it actually was. You know, I didn't feel offended by it. I listened to the whole thing, but it is definitely not good. So let's talk about another weird one. Thanks so anyway, Nick. I do appreciate it. It was probably healthy for me to sit down and actually acquaint myself with this band. And finally, after all these years. I mean, how many years could you be a metal fan and never actually sit down and listen to Mama's Boys? I made it about close to 40. Not quite. A good 35, though. Close to 40. This is really smokes. This isn't like a glam record. This is like a straight ahead heavy metal record, you know? It's not satanic or like particularly evil sounding or anything like that, but it's just good, man. So, here's what we're going to listen to right now, though, because there's another one I just sort of rediscovered recently. Because there aren't a whole lot of bands, as you may have noticed, from Alaska. And there's this one that I had at one point and let it go, and then I came across it again. But, yeah, long story short, these guys are from Ketchikan, and these are the Plaids. I remember having mixed feelings about this record. I remember this as being one of those sort of weird records that's sort of metal in intent, but only about half like actual metal. And I was thinking of like the Kingdom record or something like that, and I was like, oh, maybe I can put together a little concept or something and talk about, you know, records that are only like half metal or something like that. This didn't really fit the bill because this really is pretty rockin' all the way through. This first side is a lot heavier than the second side. But I played this a couple times, and I think I finally put my finger on what sort of makes this band distinctive. Well, what gives this band its weirdness, I should say. Yeah, Domina Deus by the Plaids. So, your first clue that something's up is the plural name, right? You hear that now? It's pretty rock, but there's something about that sort of hoppy sound, that sort of bounce. I've talked a lot about records where the band where they write glam but play it heavy. Like Leather Nun is one of my favorite examples of that. You know, and a more commonly known one, a more accessible one is probably the first Crew record. You know, total glam writing, but the playing is heavy enough that, you know, it sort of delivers it. Maybe the first Wasp record too, actually. Like glam writing with glam playing, then you get like the sort of the sweet, sort of sugary shit that you don't really want to listen to. There are a lot of records like that, but I can't think of a whole lot of records that are written like new wave records, but played like metal. And this one kind of has that. I mean, listen to that. I mean, these guys are delivering it like it's a metal song, but it's really kind of a new wave song. And I'm kind of fascinated by it. Like, sometimes I put this on and I like it more than others. And there are definitely some songs on here that are better than others. Here's a title track. Wow. A little spooky intro, which reminds me of Deep Switch for some reason. Even though it doesn't actually sound like Deep Switch at all. Just adjust this. I mean, that opening riff there, that was pretty metal though, right? Like, it's not like these guys didn't know how to do it. But here you can kind of hear the new wave again a little bit. And it's like a really sort of new wave singing style, you know? But that's a pretty solid fucking riff right there. And a weird timing thing, you hear that? Wait, we can get back to it though, but there's like an extra measure, or an extra half measure or something stuff in there. It's a weird thing to notate when you're writing out the music, but fuck, this isn't like the music theory theologian channel over here or anything, so. The timing right here is weird. It still kind of sounds a little bit like Deep Switch to me, too. Maybe it's the attitude or the delivery or something about it, because the songwriting isn't really that Deep Switchy, but maybe just a little bit? I don't know. Maybe I'll figure it out at some other point and talk about it more length. How the plaids are like Deep Switch. It's another great record I pulled out. Sort of like really primitive epic metal, even though it's 86. But this record's so good. I think Salem's Witch has kind of gotten a lot of hype over the years. People probably know it, but Betrayer of Kings is not overrated, man. It's a fucking great record. It just sounds so, like, serious and intense and, like, just so earnest in its delivery, you know, which is exactly what you want in a good metal record. Look at that fucking cover, man. How can you argue with that? Alright. I think the last one I'm going to talk about here. Actually, real quick. I thought I'd give this one a chance because I figured I've been getting a lot of like new album 45s of late. More to come. But yeah, one where I was like, I just don't feel like searching that fucking thing out is Lautrec. So I assume that's how you pronounce it, Lautrec. Looks like a French name. I actually looked it up. I don't remember who that is. It was some guy or something, I think. But anyway, I don't give a shit. Anyway, the Mean Gasoline single was like it was one of those I think never really came out or something, and people paid big piles of money for it. I was like, I don't care that much, so I'll just check that out. I'm curious. And this record rocked pretty hard, actually. This is better than I expected. So it's a splattered release, so it's relatively easy to get because fortunately those guys have good distribution and they do good work. So yeah, if you're thinking about checking this out, it has my thumbs up. You know, it's well worth your, $20 or whatever. But the other one, I actually pulled out because Chromie D up in Canada, and I expect he's going to be returning relatively soon. But we were talking about something. He mentioned this band in passing, man. Emmy, Strut. I don't know what they were thinking with that name or with that mustache. Let's be honest. But this is a really good record too. And we're going to listen to just a minute of before we wrap it up here. Here we go. It's another one of these EPs. I mean, this is like sort of this is like the classic metal theologian pair, metal theologian fare, a private press, one and done EP by a band nobody's heard of. Great stuff. Yeah, check out that label, man. It's perfect. So here we go. Let's check this shit out. And then we'll smile about the guy's mustache for another minute. And then we'll probably call it good. Just hang on, there's a little piece of shit on here I want to wipe off. Alright, there we go. I didn't get it. Oh well. These guys look so guileless, don't they? These look like it could be your friends or something like that, you know? Fuck, I'm gonna knock this over. Fucking Emmy Strut. There's even like an insert in here with lyrics, in case you want to sing along. I'm not going to read them. In fact, as much of a wiener as the bass player looks like here, he's probably got the best pose on the back. And look at that fucking bass. That's some cool writing though, isn't it? Like it delivers on the metal, but it has like that little sort of something that makes it special in the writing. Yeah, man, I don't think this one's been reissued. It always feels like just a matter of time with a lot of these private press ones before someone like No Remorse or High Roller gets their hands on it and does a nice job. I'd say Emmy Strut's one to keep an eye out for. Alright, that's about it. Oh, there's a little epilogue here. The last time I made a video, I said there were two guys who hadn't yet reached out to me from that sale from a few weeks ago. Well, after I made that video, they both did. So I guess I did the right thing by not calling anybody out, right? It's fucking life happens. I don't give a shit. I'm not mad at anybody, you know? So anyway, if you ordered records from me, and you're not one specific guy in Australia who I made arrangements with, your shit is either on its way or has arrived. So I hope you all enjoy it, and thanks for making it a success, because it fucking was. And 0% flake rate. How about that? That beats eBay. I mean, I sold a fucking box of records just about, like 3/4 of a box of records of, you know, a box that holds about 100 records. So about 3/4 of that, and 0 people flaked on me. So hats off to all of you, man. Seriously, that's impressive shit. It just goes to show that there actually is a little something resembling community around here, even if maybe we're all too cool to really sort of acknowledge it or whatever, right? All right, thanks for watching. Always appreciate it.